I got a bonus at work, and I couldn't wait to spend it. It's funny how we're all caught up in this rat race, constantly chasing the next paycheck or promotion, thinking it'll bring us happiness. For me, that bonus represented the elusive carrot on the stick, but little did I know that it would lead me to a place where I'd trade money for something far more valuable: peace of mind. I'd always been a fan of the great outdoors, a passion that led me to explore hunting locations far from the beaten path. In 1987, I decided to embark on a hunting adventure in one of the most remote and frigid places on Earth: Greenland, Antarctica. Little did I know that this trip would forever change the way I saw the world. I made the journey to Marine, the last outpost before the icy vastness of Greenland. It was a treacherous path, but the allure of hunting in such an uncharted wilderness was too strong to resist. Rather than booking a conventional hotel, I opted for an Airbnb, a cozy cabin that promised solace in the unforgiving Arctic. It was the beginning of the hunting season, and the excitement coursing through me was palpable. I'd often traveled with my uncle, a seasoned hunting partner, but this time he couldn't make the trip. Health issues had taken their toll on him, making the harsh conditions of Greenland too much to bear. I arrived late on a frosty Friday evening, greeted by the utter darkness of the polar night. The cabin's owner had assured me that the key would be hidden beneath the doormat, and indeed it was. I settled into the snug quarters, grateful for the warmth and comfort that awaited me. Greenland in November is a land of perpetual night. The silence outside was deafening, broken only by the howling of the relentless Arctic winds. The absence of bugs and crickets accentuated the eerie stillness. This solitude was a far cry from my usual hunting locales. With my gear stowed away, I set my alarm to rouse me at the break of dawn. I'd been told that this was the prime time for hunting in Greenland, a land where the elements could prove more treacherous than any wild game. The next morning, I arose with the first light, eager to explore this haunting wilderness. I ventured into the woods, armed with the hope of spotting a deer, or perhaps even a moose. The darkness persisted, and I took shelter behind a toppled tree, hoping for a chance encounter. The hours passed, but nothing stirred. My sense of isolation weighed heavily on me. It was then that I heard it, a voice, a man's voice, calling out from behind me. My heart raced as I turned to face the intruder, a man who seemed strangely out of place in this desolate landscape. His grey hair belied his age, and his approach was slow, deliberate. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, his tone tinged with anger. I stammered, explaining my presence, my ignorance of any hunting restrictions. He eyed me suspiciously, recounting how he had watched others like me venture to this cabin, always out-of-towners with ulterior motives. Apologizing profusely, I offered to leave. Gathering my belongings, I made my way back to the cabin, and as I glanced over my shoulder, the man had vanished, swallowed by the haunting silence of the Arctic night. I sought refuge in my cozy cabin, and the events of the day weighed heavily on my mind. The door had been unlocked, my belongings disturbed, and an unsettling presence seemed to linger. Unable to shake this unease, I decided to drive to a different hunting location. The day passed with little success, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, I returned to my cabin, my refuge from the enigmatic wilderness. I prepared a meal, the TV providing some semblance of normalcy. As I settled in, I reflected on the strange occurrences, the unlocked door, the moved belongings, and the mysterious man from the woods. With my toothbrush in hand, I prepared for bed, shifting to the bedroom to watch an old black-and-white movie. My mind began to blur the lines between reality and dreams as I slipped into a half-awake state. And then, it happened, the distinct sound of a door clicking open. My senses jolted me awake. I sat up in bed, my gaze fixed on the closet door, now slightly ajar. Fear coursed through me, uncertainty clouding my thoughts. I reached for my hunting pack and retrieved my CZ-75, the cold metal offering some semblance of security. With a trembling voice I called out, "Come out now or I'll shoot!" My heart pounded, a mix of disbelief and terror washing over me. The closet door creaked open, and there he was, the same man from earlier, his malevolent smile sending shivers down my spine. Panic gripped me as I fumbled for my cell phone, dialing 911. The sheriff's deputies were on their way, and I kept the intruder at gunpoint, praying for their swift arrival. It was an agonizing wait, the man showing no remorse for his actions. The cabin owner's concerns centered on his belongings, overshadowing the trauma I had endured. As I recounted the ordeal to the authorities, I couldn't help but wonder about the secrets concealed within Greenland's icy wilderness. That hunting season had irrevocably altered my perception of the world. The enigmatic legends that whispered through the pines, the chilling encounters that defied explanation, Greenland, Antarctica, held secrets beyond the confines of rationality. As I look back, the haunting mysteries of that remote cabin continue to send shivers down my spine, a testament to the uncharted horrors of the great outdoors. From that day on, I figured that I'd rather spend my money on luxury hotels and beaches than venture into the enigmatic horrors of the great outdoors. The allure of the bonus had led me down a path I never could have anticipated, one that had shaken my belief in the rational world and left me with a newfound appreciation for the comforts of civilization. Greenland, Antarctica, held its secrets close, and I had no intention of uncovering them. Next story. I was just 14 years old when I had my first taste of the wild, the kind that stays with you for a lifetime. It was the fall of 1986, and my father had taken me on a hunting trip deep into the unforgiving woods of Africa. Little did I know, this adventure would turn into a harrowing tale of hunter versus predator. We had heard stories, those kind you usually laugh off as campfire tales, stories of the occasional scream in the woods, mysterious disappearances of livestock, and unsettling rumors of creatures lurking in the shadows. But we were seasoned hunters, and we scoffed at the idea that something out there could pose a real threat. Armed with our rifles and a sense of invincibility, we ventured into the dense, ominous wilderness. The night was bone-chilling, with a full moon casting pale moonlight that bathed the woods in an eerie, otherworldly glow. We set up camp and settled into our tent, expecting nothing more than the usual excitement of a hunting trip. But as the hours passed, I heard a scream in the dark woods, distant, yet unmistakable. It sent a shiver down my spine. My father dismissed it as the cry of a bear or wolf, but something about it seemed off. It was too human, too full of anguish. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unseen eyes were fixated on our camp. The next morning, we set out, equipped with night vision sights, determined to track down whatever had made that haunting noise. We ventured deeper into the woods, our senses on high alert. That's when I spotted it, a black figure moving through the thicket, its outline barely visible in the moonlight. It was massive, easily standing over 10 feet tall, with a tail that seemed to stretch into the shadows. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it Bigfoot? Or perhaps a skinwalker, as the legends spoke of? My father and I exchanged nervous glances, our rifles suddenly feeling inadequate in the face of this colossal enigma. We followed the creature for what felt like hours, and then it vanished, just like that, into thin air. The reflective tape we had placed on the trees to mark our path was gone, as if it had never been there. Panic set in, and we decided to head back to camp. But when we reached our campsite, we were met with a horrifying sight. The tent had been torn to shreds, our supplies scattered, and our rifles missing. Someone or something had been here, and it wasn't the creature we had been tracking. It was as if the very forest had turned against us, as if our presence had stirred something malevolent. Fear gripped us, and we decided to make a run for it, retracing our steps through the tangled thicket. Our sense of direction was lost in this labyrinth of trees and shadows, and that's when we heard it again, the scream, now closer, more chilling than ever. With our rifles gone, we felt utterly vulnerable, like two prey animals being stalked by an unseen predator. As we stumbled upon an old ridge area, desperation took hold. We hoped it would provide some vantage point or shelter. As we climbed a summit climbing stand, we realized we were not alone. Two figures blocked the trail ahead, their eyes reflecting in the pale moonlight. They were tall, much taller than any human, and their forms appeared haggard, disheveled, and terrified. Panic surged as we realized we were trapped, our only way out blocked by these enigmatic beings. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, and I couldn't shake the sensation that we were being herded, driven towards something. We had become the hunted, our roles reversed in the blink of an eye. To our astonishment, the two figures were not monsters or supernatural entities. They were fellow campers who had endured the same horrors as us. Their tent similarly torn asunder, their supplies scattered. They were scared and disoriented, just like we were. We never saw the creature we had been tracking again, but that night, in the deep woods of Africa, left an indelible mark on us. It was a reminder that in the wild, even the most seasoned hunters can become prey. From that day on, I gained a newfound respect for the untamed, a reminder that sometimes it's better to be the observer than the one being observed. And as for my adventures in the wild, I decided that some mysteries were better left unsolved. Story 3. Have you ever ventured into the heart of the unknown, surrounded by towering trees and the haunting silence of the wilderness? If so, you might understand the eerie tales I'm about to share. Stories that have haunted me since my days as a long-haul trucker. It was a foreign land, far from the familiar highways I'd traversed as a long-haul trucker. I found myself in a place I never anticipated. A trucker park nestled on the outskirts of a vast, imposing forest. This was no ordinary rest stop. It was a desolate patch of gravel, a barren expanse with only a few derelict 18-wheelers scattered about. No amenities, no Wi-Fi, just a place to park and get some much-needed sleep, far from the prying eyes of highway patrol. My trailer was laden with cargo, car parts destined for a distant dealership warehouse. The diesel engine hummed beside me, my only companion on this lonely stretch of road. Inside my cab, the dashboard served as my microcosm, cluttered with empty coffee cups, scattered receipts, and a new dashcam I had recently installed for both safety and insurance purposes. After countless monotonous miles of empty road, I finally arrived at this desolate trucker park. The night had descended, and the sky above was a sprawling canvas of darkness, adorned only by the faintest of stars. Exhausted from my journey, I leaned my seat back, improvising a makeshift bed with a worn-out blanket. It was then that I contemplated reviewing the dashcam footage from a minor bump I'd encountered on the freeway a few days prior. The insurance company required it after all. However, fatigue was an adversary I couldn't conquer that easily. Within moments, I had succumbed to its grasp, and the silence outside enveloped my rig like an impenetrable shroud. Little did I know that the events of this night would etch themselves into my memory, like a nightmare that refuses to fade. I awoke to the cold light of dawn, a greyish hue that drained life from everything it touched. My eyes were gritty from the meagre sleep I had managed to steal. Glancing at the dashcam, I found it still there, silently recording my every move. With a sigh, I reached for my laptop and connected it to the dashcam, intending to upload the footage. Each day's recordings were neatly time-stamped, and I clicked on the file corresponding to the minor bump. The footage was mundane, just an endless expanse of roads, sporadic vehicles, and then the collision. I was about to close the video when another file caught my eye, one time-stamped around 3 a.m., precisely when I was asleep in this very parking lot. Curiosity piqued. I clicked on it, revealing the interior of my cab. The door silently swung open, and a dark figure slipped in as seamlessly as a shadow. My heart quickened as they rummaged through my personal belongings, my wallet, a stack of aging receipts, a family photograph. When I looked closely, it was a monkey. But what sent a shiver down my spine was when they picked up my pocket knife. The blade gleamed ominously in the dim light of the dashboard as they scrutinized it. It was a moment of chilling tension, and then they carefully replaced the knife and turned their attention to me, still blissfully unaware and fast asleep in the corner of the frame. Their gaze lingered on me as though contemplating some sinister act, and finally, they withdrew, slipping out of the cab just as stealthily as they had entered. The video ended, but the sense of dread that washed over me remained. It clung to me like a stubborn shadow, refusing to dissipate. As I glanced around the seemingly deserted trucker park, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Little did I know that this unsettling encounter was just the prologue to a series of events that would plunge me deeper into the enigmatic heart of the wilderness, where the eerie and the unimaginable awaited.